In a world where machines and biomechanical creatures are programmed to serve humanity, an exiled engineer living on the edge of the galaxy is suddenly saddled with an artificial girl, discarded like trash. But beneath her cold shell and broken operating system lies something the world has long forgotten, a heart that still dreams. A dark space, utterly still, hauntingly silent. No music, no voices, just a void of absolute quiet in the pitch-black universe. Then, a shadow breaks through the darkness, emerging like a ghost that lost its way. Repair Station 47, a massive, rusting hulk of metal, floats like a phantom among the dead asteroids of the Debrix Belt. It no longer appears on star charts, is never mentioned in comm relays, and has been long forgotten by anyone who ever knew it existed. The station's outer shell is corroded by radiation, with steel plates peeling away like the dead skin of a dying beast. Faint warning lights flicker, like the final breaths of an aging mechanical monster. Inside the hollow corpse of that ship lives Arvin Salas, a name once spoken with reverence in interstellar science circles, now reduced to a ghost of a man, silent and alone, as if he too has become part of this decaying relic. Arvin, 46. A thick beard, eyes sunken behind smoke-tinted welding goggles. His hands are rough, each finger fused into the machinery scattered across his workshop. He doesn't talk much. He just works. Works to forget. Works to survive. Arvin Salas, former chief engineer of the Terran Alliance. Once known as the Machine Whisperer, a man who could make a warship respond to a single line of code, like it was hearing his soul. The Tech Council praised him once, but then they asked him to build something he couldn't accept, an emotional override system, one that would turn combat AIs into soulless killing tools. He refused, and the cost of that humanity was exile, branded a traitor. Everything, reputation, rank, dreams, ripped from him like a memory chip yanked from its socket. A faint hum crackles from a leaky power core. Scrap vessels lie motionless, like metal-wrapped corpses covered in silence. Arvin slides open a rusted steel door with a groaning RKK, revealing the supply hold. The room reeks of metal, plasma dust, and the damp scent of forgotten time. He doesn't complain, doesn't grieve. He simply exists, like a cog in a machine that no longer remembers its purpose. But tonight, something is coming. Something that will tear through the stagnant silence of Station 47 and awaken a past Arvin thought buried for good. A ragged warning siren blares, like the scream of a dying animal. The station's aging radar picks up an anomaly, flickering, distorted, like a ghost ship's final cry. From the thick black of Debrix, an old cargo freighter emerges from the shadows, hull scorched, outer plating cracked like the skin of a rotting carcass, leaking smoke and dim firelight from engine wounds on the verge of explosion. The ship staggers toward Station 47's docking rail, screeching painfully as it scrapes against the magnetic lock. The auto-docking protocol kicks in, not by Arvin's will, but through some forgotten subroutine deep in the station's dying core. As if the station itself still had a soul, and it was welcoming old ghosts home. The airlock hisses open with a sigh, long, tired, almost resentful. 3 figures appear, shady traders, stinking of oil, stale sweat, and cheap lust. They strut in arrogantly. The first, fat with squinting eyes that sneer without words. The second, tall and gaunt, skin pale like someone who's lived underground for years, fingers tapping endlessly on a cheap pad. The third, small, silent, lips pressed tight, but eyes sharp, like a man who once strangled something still breathing. They smirk as they scan the decaying interior of Station 47, like trespassers in a forgotten graveyard no one bothered to guard. Fat trader, dry chuckle. Well, would you look at that? This place still breathes. Thought it got swallowed by a black hole or something. Arvind stepped out of the shadows, still holding a welding torch that hummed with residual heat. He didn't speak. He just watched, eyes cold as liquid steel. No one greeted him. No one asked permission. They acted like this station was a carcass, and they had every right to pick it clean. 3 merchants entered in silence, like ghosts slipping through the dark. The rusted metal door groaned behind them, dragging in a gust of cold from the void outside, air that felt like it belonged to a dying world. They moved quickly, soundlessly, like wandering spirits already too familiar with the chill and haze of this place. A place long past life, where the scent of rust and decay had sunk into everything, including the people. The fat one led the way, his enormous belly swaying inside a stained pressure suit. Beady eyes, sunken in folds of greasy flesh, darted around, searching. His lips twitched, not to speak but to chew something. A rank stench clung to the air, accompanied by the wet, crunching sounds of him gnawing, like some beast tearing into meat in the dark. Fat merchant, grating voice, like he's spitting each word. Patch the thruster cracks for us, Arvind. Move it. His voice rasped, like the whine of a failing engine. He tossed a thin sheet of steel to the floor. It clattered against the rust-stained deck with a harsh, empty clang, like something striking the heart of silence. Arvind didn't respond. He just stared at the piece of metal, motionless, like a reflection of the grim reality he lived in. His eyes held no rage, only exhaustion. Slowly, his gaze drifted to the broken freighter outside, a scar across the canvas of the stars. It sat there, sluggish, rusting, barely recognizable as a ship. The fat one turned back toward Arvind, his gaze void of anything but contempt. He frowned when Arvind gave no reaction. The 3 traders pushed deeper into the repair bay, like they'd always belonged. No surprise, no respect. Arvind stood still, a silent statue in a dead world. Cold filled the space around them with every step, the kind of cold that seeps in when feeling is long gone. Repair Station 47 stayed quiet in the night, broken only by the faint whisper of solar winds hissing through cracks in its decaying walls. Arvind Salas stood amid a graveyard of corroded hulls, the flickering overhead lights casting dim glows across his face. His fingers moved slowly over his tools, mechanical and numb, like he was fixing not a ship, but fragments of a life already crushed. A life like this freighter. Arvind looked at the battered ship again. Its hull twisted and rusted, as if it had once flown through 1,000 stars and then simply stopped, too tired to continue. The surface was riddled with fractures, deep wounds that would never heal. Its engine hissed and creaked like the last breath of some ancient creature. When Arvind pressed his hand to the cracked plating, it groaned beneath the weight, a reminder that everything here was dying or already dead. He picked up a thin piece of metal, blank-faced. His hands brushed damaged circuits, feeling the fractures in the system as if tracing his own, not to heal them, but to confirm they were beyond saving. His eyes didn't leave the ship, not because he cared if it would run again, but because it was like him, something broken that couldn't go back, something abandoned, something fading. Arvind muttering, voice dry and rough, "What's dead doesn't come back." He kept working, but his motions had nothing human in them, drifting like a piece of wreckage with nowhere left to go. Each movement lacked soul, like an old machine patched together by rust and habit. He removed wires, reconnected snapped lines, not because they'd be useful, but because there was nothing else. His eyes stayed hollow, emotionless, like he'd abandoned the idea of feeling long ago. The rust on the hull mirrored his own life. Wounds that never healed, memories that never returned. The hull cracked further under his hands, like a corpse falling apart in the arms of someone powerless to stop it. Arvind kept going, lips sealed, hands moving with the fatigue of someone long past caring. Every bolt he twisted, every drop of lubricant that fell onto the corroded metal, It all felt like a slow bleeding of sorrow. He wasn't fixing a ship. He was fixing despair, trapped in a loop he knew would never end. The low rumble of the ship's engine systems began to echo as Arvin adjusted the control panels. He stood up, watching as the final parts of the vessel flickered back to life. But there was no joy in his eyes, no satisfaction in the repair. He turned away, gave his ship one last look, then walked back into the shadows of the repair station. The ship could go on, but Arvin couldn't. All that remained of him was a man abandoned, like the shattered fragments of himself no one bothered to collect. The air in the station was damp and stifling. Sickly yellow light spilled from dying bulbs, casting an eerie glow over the three merchants, phantoms drifting in from some grim dream of a forgotten galaxy. All three stood there, sweat glistening on their rough skin, eyes dull, hands filthy with planetary dust. Their clothes were tattered, patched with dead tech wiring and scraps of fabric scavenged from long-dead civilizations. The fat one, clearly the leader, snorted with contempt, waving his hand like he could swat away his poverty with attitude. The other two hovered behind him, hunched and shifty-eyed, like men who'd traded their souls just to survive one more cosmic storm. Fat merchant, sneering, pretending confidence. "So, we good now, mighty engineer?" Arvin Salas didn't answer. He just stood there, hands still stained with grease and metal fragments, his face cold as steel untouched by polish. He already knew they had no money. He expected nothing more. Thin merchant, dry laugh. "We, didn't bring any credits. Times are rough, you know how it is." Tall merchant, chiming in mockingly, "But come on, can't let a good guy like you work for free, right?" He turned, kicked open one of the rusted crates, lashed with steel wire. A foul stench poured out, burned plastic, rotting synthetic skin, scorched metal. And then he dragged it out, something that looked like a humanoid corpse from a junk heap. It was a girl, or had once been. A half-organic being, part machine, part woman, damaged beyond repair. Her synthetic skin was peeling, one arm torn off and dangling by scorched wires. Her eyes were empty, one shattered, the other flickering faintly like the dying breath of a fading star. Fat merchant, tossing her to the floor like garbage. "Here. Alina, old unit, still functional." The impact rang through the rusted metal floor, sending up a cloud of dust. Arvin stared at her, his expression unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. A sting, subtle and sharp, like a blade grazing the edge of a long-forgotten dream. Thin merchant, grinning viciously. "Bet she'll suit you fine. Alone in this rotting station, nights getting cold, she'll keep you company." Tall merchant, low voice like a hiss. "Just recharge her, plug in the right port, and enjoy yourself at Arvin Salas." Their laughter echoed through the emptiness, slicing into the silence like a cruel wind. Then they turned and left, not a single word of thanks, just the fading smog of their dying ship. Arvin knelt down. He didn't touch the girl, not out of disgust, but because he didn't know where to begin. She was too much like him, broken, discarded, treated as nothing more than a tool for someone else's convenience. A faint light blinked from a chip near her temple. Arvin stared at it. There was no pity in his eyes, no hatred either, just silence, like the breathless winds drifting through the Debrick's belt. He bowed his head, lifted the wreck of a girl, and disappeared into the shadows of Station 47, a place where everything was broken, yet somehow still breathing, just barely. Arvin Salas walked slowly toward the main repair table, the only place on Station 47 still lit brightly enough to tell where metal ended and flesh began. In his arms was the shattered body of the half-human girl, Alina. She weighed almost nothing. Her artificial skin cracked and pale under the light, like wax forgotten by flame. One leg was dislocated, the remaining arm charred down to the skeletal frame. Exposed synthetic nerves hung out like rotted roots from dead soil. Arvin wrapped an old, heavy cloth around her body, the kind he usually used to cover broken parts beyond repair. He didn't do it out of mercy, but because he couldn't stand that hollow gaze drilling into him, as if it was digging through a loneliness he'd never dared to name. He laid her on the workbench, more gently than he'd ever handled anything fragile or priceless. She didn't react, didn't move, didn't blink. Just lay there, eyes wide open, empty, staring through the cold space like a statue cursed by time. A program waiting for command or a soul stripped down to its final thread. Arvin, staring, voice low, nearly a whisper, "What are you?" He stepped back, eyes still locked on her. Arvin, eyes darkening. A toy or a person left behind? Silence, heavy like a vacuum. No answer, just a sound, faint, delicate, like a heartbeat lost in a void. Unclear if it was real or synthetic, a sign of life or the final echo of a dying dream. Arvin stood there, time frozen around him, and in that moment, two decaying beings, one man, one machine, shared a silence. Not the silence of death, but of something about to begin. A question no one had dared to ask. A crossroads between technology and fate. Because sometimes what's discarded is the only thing left to save us. Cold light fell across Alina's unmoving body. Rust cracks, scorched wiring, like brutal scars across synthetic skin. And yet, something was wrong. Off. Arvin, leaning closer, voice low, not civilian grade, not some cheap entertainment unit. He touched the synthetic skin at her wrist, not quite as soft as human flesh, not as hard as metal. A hybrid material, sophisticated, expensive, a forbidden tech. He gently turned her head. A hidden panel clicked open. Inside, not standard wiring, but a neural core etched with ancient script. A relic from a long-extinct tech era, lost after the machine wars. Neurosim absolute. Banned tech. He couldn't hide the shock on his face. She wasn't some discarded sex bot. Not trash, but a biosynthetic being. A lost legacy. The kind that once terrified even the brightest minds. He touched her collarbone, where a deep fracture stretched down to her sternum. When his hand rested there, a faint pulse pushed back into his skin, bioelectric. An emotional echo, fleeting but real. His eyes froze, and for the first time in years, his hands trembled. Arvin whispers hoarse, "You're not a toy?" He took a step back, as if afraid of whatever had just touched his soul through those cold circuits. She still didn't move, eyes open, staring into the void. But this time, something in that gaze had softened. A drop slid from the corner of her eye. Not a tear, but optical protection fluid. And yet it fell at the perfect moment, in the perfect way, that it looked exactly like a tear. A tear from a machine not meant to dream. Arvin Salas sat down. He pulled tools from his kit. Not rushed, not slow. As if his hands had done this 1,000 times. But this time, something was different. Electric buzzing. One of Alina's arms is stabilized. Arvin welds it with a plasma torch, each spark tracing the shape of a shattered soul. Every flicker of light reflects the cold precision on his face, like he's operating on a piece of his own broken past. He reconnects synthetic nerves with bare hands, no gloves, as if trying to feel the final pulses still lingering in this forgotten body. Arvin, murmuring, eyes locked on his work, "No one told you to live, but I won't let you die." A spark flares from the circuit board at the back of Alina's neck, then vanishes. Once, then twice. The third time, it lingers, like the gaze of someone about to wake from a century-long sleep. Machines respond. Lights flicker. Parts inside her hum to life. Metal whispers slipping into the air like the first breath after being buried alive. Arvin says nothing. He keeps working. Quiet. Focused. He removes fragments, cleans them, replaces them with salvaged parts from a ship he once meant to scrap. He's pulling life from wreckage, stitching it into something the universe had already given up on. Alina's face, close up. A small chip is embedded into her temple. The moment it connects, her eye twitches just slightly, but enough to make Arvin freeze, breath held. He tilts his head, staring into those open, unblinking eyes. Arvin, softly, like he might break something fragile. Can you hear me? Are you coming back? No answer. But somewhere, a soft ping echoes, the sound of a dormant system whispering back to life. Alina's arm twitches. Just once. But that's all it takes. Dim workshop, Arvin's tech room. Alina lies still on the table. Her left hand curls faintly, fingers jerking as if trying to remember the feel of touch. The ceiling light above flickers, reacting to unstable energy beginning to spread. Arvin, sitting nearby, eyes sunken from sleepless nights, voice raspy. You're still breathing, so you're not trash yet. He starts to turn away, then hears it, a faint breath like wind brushing through an abandoned hallway. Arvin freezes. Alina's mouth opens. Alina, mechanical and human, weak, muffled like echo from a deep well. Where am I? Arvin's chest tightens, not from fear, but from the sound of something that almost sounds human. And yet, not quite. A voice calling from the edge of life and code. Arvin, Repair Station 47. On the border of the dead galaxy. You were left here, just like me. Alina, voice trembling, static laced like relearning speech. Left behind? I don't remember. My name. Arvin, looking at her, unsure if it's pity or empathy in his eyes. Your name is the only thing the scrap dealers didn't erase. Alina. She flinches. A faint light flickers in her eyes, uncertain if it's recovered data or a buried memory desperate to surface. Alina, what am I? Arvin, something used, thrown away, like everything else in this damn universe. Silence drops like a thick curtain. Only the soft crackling of electricity leaking from her neck remains, a half-restored circuit flickering with blue light. She doesn't move, just looks at him, as if her eyes were asking, do you see a machine or a soul? Alina, voice low, slowly growing clearer. Did you fix me to use me? Arvin lets out a dry, bitter laugh, eyes hollow. No, I don't need a broken sex doll. I fix you because I couldn't stand it, that feeling of seeing something still breathing, but never given a chance to live. Alina, silent. Then softly, I don't know how to live. Arvin whispers, neither do I. A faint glow flickered to life in her artificial pupils, like a tiny flame wavering at the bottom of a frozen abyss. A half-mechanical creature pulled from a junk heap. A man who had discarded himself long ago. Now they faced each other, in the flickering light, amid rusted metal and shattered memories. Dim light blinked from the control panel, casting pale flashes in the dark. Thin moisture spread from the old cooling system, cloaking the room in a cold silver mist. Alina lay still on the table, surrounded by wires, welding sparks, and strange tools from the era of tech wars. The cracks in her body had been sealed with superconductive alloy. Corroded circuits were replaced with fresh impulse conduits, as if Arvin were stitching together not just her body, but the forgotten fragments of her soul. A heartbeat, soft but real, echoed for the first time. Slow, but true. And then a pulse of bioelectricity coursed through her artificial spine. Her fingers twitched, trembling, lost, as if trying to rediscover the primal instinct of being alive. A mechanical hand brushed the air. Alina, barely audible light. Her eyes, once blank like glass, blinked. A first spark flickered in her digital iris, faint glimmering, like the first star rising in a dead sky. She moved again, her head tilted slightly, and then, with a soft metallic creak, Alina sat up. Not fast, not rushed. She sat like someone awakening from a centuries-long dream. Arvin, hoarse, disbelieving, no way. Alina turned. She looked at him, unblinking, as if seeing through him, not just with sensors, but with something deeper. A soul, still hazy, rising from a cloud of data. Alina, very slowly, voice steady, I dreamed. The words fell like a bell toll in the void. A machine isn't meant to dream. Wasn't programmed to. But she had dreamed. An impossible sign that her mind was rewriting itself, clawing its way back from darkness. Arvin stood frozen. Air from the vent wrapped around him like the breath of a world witnessing a miracle. He said nothing, only watched her, as if for the first time in years he saw something worth believing in. And in that moment, among rusted steel, scorched memories, and the silence of the cosmos, Alina had returned. Inside her body, a stream of data trickled like the first dew of life through the microcircuits. A sensor pulsed gently, then a myofiber twitched, tried to awaken from a long sleep. The central neuroprocessor, once sealed and fragmented, began to rebuild itself. Shattered memories, images, sounds, feelings, like shards of a broken mirror, were slowly coming back together, piece by piece. Every step Alina took was more than just movement. It was the victory of self over oblivion. She reached out, touching the wall, feeling the rust, the cold iron textures, and for the first time, she remembered pain. She clutched her head, collapsing to her knees. Her eyes blazed, bright and wild, like a dying star. Alina, crying out, choked with emotion, I remember, I used to be human, not just a shell. I used to be someone trusted. Inside that half-mechanical body, a soul had begun to breathe. The old station lay silent, drifting in the thick black void. Starlight from distant suns filtered through the round window, falling onto the scratched steel floor, where now two beings existed in quiet defiance of fate. Alina sits on a bench near the electric heater. Her eyes are fixed on her hands like they're a riddle waiting to be solved. Hands once programmed to obey now tremble slightly, as if relearning how to touch the world. Arvin approaches without a word. In his hand is a steaming cup of tea, not a necessity on the station, but a human ritual. He sets the cup in front of her. Arvin, raspy, brief, take it. Alina, hesitant, fingertips grazing the cup. It's warm. Arvin, that's the first thing to remember. The little things, they keep people alive longer than machines do. Down a long corridor veiled in metallic dust, Alina stumbles forward like a newborn trapped in an adult body. Every step echoes like a memory trying to break free. Arvin follows behind, silently, patiently. Alina, collapsing, breathless, my body won't listen. Arvin, helping her up, because you're the one controlling it now. No more command lines. Alina, looking at him, I don't know what I want. Arvin, that's okay. Start there. Pick something. Anything. His kitchen is bare, filled with outdated appliances, a glitchy induction stove, a rusty pantry, an old, wheezing water filter, a sanctuary stitched together by survival habits. He hands her a synthetic egg. Arvin, crack it. Alina, wide-eyed, to destroy it? Arvin, smirking, no, to eat it. She cracks it too hard. The shell bursts messily over the table. Alina's eyes widen, and then, for the first time, she laughs. Strange, unfamiliar, but real. Arvin, watching her quietly, a faint smile tugging at his lips, not bad. Pale light spills from a wall lamp onto a dusty wall. Alina stands still before it, like facing a forgotten relic. She raises her hand, once bound by wires and code, and gently brushes the surface like stroking a living memory. The wall is more than metal. It's where Arvin once sketched. Messy symbols, spirals, childlike scrawls, planetary shapes like a silent diary etched in loneliness and dreams. Alina begins to wipe the dust away. With every swipe, more of the markings emerge, as if waking from a years-long sleep. And in her once emotionless eyes, a spark appears, something strange and new: awareness. A withered bioplant sits tucked in shadow, its leaves curled like abandoned memories. Alina lifts it carefully, replaces the soil, adjusts the grow light, and waters it with nutrient solution she found in old data logs. Her hands, no longer tools, become hands that heal. The next day, a tiny green leaf peeks out, a shard of hope in a gray, fading world. On a long workbench littered with rusty parts lies a mini flyer drone, a broken bird with wings too tired to rise. Arvin taps it gently. Can't fly. Motors are dead. Alina tilts her head. A flicker of challenge glints in her eyes. Alina, not yet. They get to work. She traces circuits, he solders wires. They argue over blade angles, giggle when the first motor sparks to life. Laughter, a sound too rare, bursts through the still air like a song breaking silence. Finally, the device gave a soft tremble, then lifted off, like Alina's soul, taking flight for the first time. Old kitchen. Early morning, the sound of running water whispered like an ancient language. Alina placed her hand under the stream, a hand once made for function without feeling, now trembling as the icy cold spread through her synthetic skin. She said nothing, just breathed, softly, as if afraid to break the moment. Arvin stood beside her, silent, just watching. A single droplet splashed onto her face, and for the first time, Alina winced, then let out a soft laugh. Unprogrammed, uncalculated. Arvin froze, not because of the laugh, but because his heart suddenly beat faster. Arvin, thinking that's the sound of life. Bedroom. Gentle afternoon. Alina was folding the blanket. Her movements were still clumsy, but there was something intentional, meaningful. Arvin, you can leave that. I'll take care of it. Alina looked up at him. No anger, no sadness, just determination. Alina, I want to remember the feeling when everything's neat. I don't know why, but it makes me feel calm. Arvin nodded, then turned away, but his eyes were red. Observatory room. Night the station was as quiet as a graveyard of stars. On the screen, a nebula cluster dissolved, a beautiful death. Alina sat close beside Arvin. She didn't speak, didn't touch him, but close enough to hear his slow breathing. Alina, I feel something when I look at dying stars. Like I was lost once too. Arvin, quietly so was I. They looked at each other. In that moment, two abandoned souls crossed paths. No fire, no contact, just a connection so deep it was almost frightening. Simple acts, dusting, planting, fixing small things, washing hands, folding blankets, stargazing, became silent, sacred rituals. They didn't just teach Alina how to live again. They helped Arvin remember how to feel. Dust clung to the control wall, shimmering faintly in the blue-tinged light. The air system wheezed softly, like the shallow breath of something dying. Alina, her hands still unsteady, leaned down to unscrew a panel, each movement slow but sure. Arvin sat across from her, holding a cable between his fingers. A small spark leapt, their hands brushed. Neither pulled away, just a touch, but it rippled like a quiet current. Alina's eyes widened, as if she'd touched a memory with no shape. Arvin swallowed hard. Something inside him had either fallen or been found. Arvin, softly, strange, feels like this already happened. Alina didn't answer, but her eyes, deep and still like a lake, held something beyond words. In every motion, every glance, something had started to come alive again. Not the machine, not the programming, but the human. Kitchen. Late afternoon, the station was quiet, save for the clink of metal tools. On the table, a simple meal was set: pale golden seaweed soup, square cut protein bread, a pinch of red spice like dried blood. Alina scooped a spoonful of soup, lifted it, tasted it, and then she closed her eyes. In that moment, no more station, no more Arvin, just her and the salt blooming like a tide in her chest. A single tear fell into the bowl. Alina opened her eyes, stunned. What is this? Why does it hurt so much? Arvin looked at her quietly. Maybe it's the scent of something you once loved. On the dusty table, Alina traced a circle with her fingertip. Slow, steady, an ancient symbol echoing of cycles of rebirth. She stared at it, as if trying to remember a broken dream. Then she wiped it away. No one asked why. Some things aren't meant to be named, only felt. From the damp air came the soft tapping of metal. Arvin was gently striking a spoon against the edge of a water bottle, creating a pattern of rhythmic sounds, like a lullaby from a planet that had forgotten how to dream. Alina listened, unblinking, barely breathing. That sound, it had shape. It had color. It had emotion. She tilted her head, then smiled faintly. Alina, whispering, "You're telling a story, aren't you?" Arvin kept tapping, but his lips moved. A story about someone who once believed he no longer deserved to be heard. Bedroom, midnight. Light from the planet beyond the window spilled in dim blue, dreamlike. Alina gasped, her body jolting. She was dreaming. A strange dream, hazy, indistinct, just a shifting white light and a voice calling her name. Gentle, urgent, as if from the other side of reality. She shot up, panicked, her eyes filled with emotions no programming had ever taught her to name. The door burst open. Arvin rushed in, didn't even ask. He pulled her into his arms. Held her tight, not for a reason, not out of understanding, but instinct, because his heart told him to. Alina sobbed against him, not knowing why she was crying. A whisper in her mind. Some rituals need no priests, no altars. Only one person reaching out to another and letting them feel alive. Date 21. The Legacy of the Soul Observation Room. Silver Night. A foggy glass pane looked out over the ruined surface of the planet below. The ground was blotched and still, like an ancient scar etched into the skin of the universe. The space station stood silent, a witness frozen in time. Alina stood by the window, unmoving. Her hair shimmered faintly with the cold silver light of a setting galaxy. There was no expression on her face, only deep stillness, like every feeling had folded into a single, unspoken question. Arvin stepped closer. His hands were still stained with engine oil, silver dust clinging to his clothes. He didn't speak, just stood beside her, quiet. Alina, softly, almost to herself, legacy. Arvin, surprised, turning to her, what? Alina didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed outside, toward the misty glow of a planet that once lived. Alina, barely louder than the wind slipping through metal. I know now why I was created. A tool, a means, a perfect shape made to serve something I no longer care about. But she turned to him. Her gaze met his, no longer artificial, no longer scripted. But the eyes of someone dreaming of a world they've never touched. Alina, voice trembling but firm, I don't want to just exist anymore. Arvin freezes for a beat. Those words, simple, but like they tore through the veil between machine and soul. Arvin softly, then we want. A silence. Long, long enough to hear the galaxy breathe. Alina turns back toward the window. Her hand rests against the glass, far beyond which a dust storm howls endlessly below. And in that wasteland, a tiny glimmer of light from the station, like a faint heartbeat pulsing in the corpse of time. Alina, eyes gleaming like falling stars, barely a whisper, "I want to live with you." The station floats in the dark purple sky, silver light from the Milky Way slowly fading behind a dead planet. But in that darkness, another light begins to flicker. A quiet laugh escapes, strange, hesitant, then grows. The hum of machinery returns, like something awakening from eternal sleep. Breaths, their breaths, merge into one rhythm, drawing an invisible melody. Light as mist, deep as the void. From the ashes of loneliness, from the incomplete code of an artificial mind, from the broken shards of a human soul once afraid to feel, a love is beginning to bloom. Not loud, not rushed, just quietly, stubbornly, like roots pushing through frozen stone on a dead world, reaching for a sun no one believes exists. The night after, the unspoken question. A faint maintenance lamp casts a pale glow. The station holds its breath. In the corner of the room, Alina sits cross-legged on the cold floor, turning a small screw in her fingers like a child playing. Arvind sits at his desk, hunched slightly, eyes no longer focused on the screen. Alina, soft, as if whispering into his mind, "What is love?" Arvind flinches. His heart beats faster, not from the question, but the voice, so innocent, yet painfully real. Alina, lifting her gaze, eyes bright like a newborn planet. "I've scanned the entire data archive. Read thousands of definitions, but they're empty. Just strings of words. No heartbeat." Arvind swallows hard. In the dim light, his eyes rest on Alina, not as a machine, but as something so fragile that a single wrong answer could shatter what had just begun between them. Arvind, with difficulty, "Love isn't something you explain. It's not a module or a protocol. It's the thing that makes people do stupid things. Accept pain. Embrace weakness." Alina, barely audible. "Then if I say I want to learn how to love, is that stupid?" Arvind turns away. He can't look at her. His hand tightens around a broken tool. Fear. He's afraid that she will learn to love. Afraid he won't be enough for her to understand it. Afraid if he lets his heart drift too close, he'll forget she's artificial. But his heart had betrayed reason long ago. Arvind hoarse, "No, Alina. That is the bravest thing any being can do." Arvind walks down the corridor, lights flickering like a heartbeat. He leans against the wall, eyes closed, breathing hard. A drop, sweat, or a tear slides down. He fears that feeling, fears the gentleness in her eyes, fears how the world quiets when they exist in the same moment. But more than that, he fears losing her again, because this time his heart may never recover. Alina lies on the small bed near the star window. Her hand rests over her chest, and there she feels something, a faint rhythm, like electric waves brushing a soul that didn't know it had one. She closes her eyes. Alina, whispering to herself, "If love is something that can't be understood, maybe I'll learn." By feeling you. Outside, the galaxy drifts slowly like a dream, and the space station, once a prison of loneliness, now is where her heart begins to beat to a rhythm like never before. The first warmth station kitchen dawn, a pale blue light shines down from the ceiling, spreading like moonlight. In a quiet space, Alina stands before the metal dining table. On it, 2 porcelain cups. Her hand trembles slightly as she holds the water jug, pouring into each cup carefully, as though performing an ancient ritual. She gazes at the 2 still cups. Her once expressionless eyes now carry a different light, anticipation. The door swings open. Arvin enters, disheveled hair, still wearing his protective suit. Arvin, sleepily in a low voice, "What's going on?" Alina turns. Her face shines brightly, as if the dawn itself emanates from within her. Alina, softly hesitating, "I've prepared something called a moment." He stops, looking at the two cups. His brow furrows slightly. "Arvin, a moment." "Alina, humans often share emotions through small things. Through tea, through meals, through glances." She looks down a little. "I don't have tea, but I have water. And I have a glance." She sits down, looks at him, her hands placed neatly on the table, but her fingers awkwardly interlaced, as if mimicking something, yet not fully understanding what she's doing. Arvin remains silent. A part of him wants to laugh, but another part, deeper, tightens in his chest. She's trying, really trying, for him. He sits down across from her. They look at each other in silence. No words needed. A ray of light cuts through the station's window, landing directly on the two cups, making the water inside sparkle like two crystals. The whole station seems to hold its breath. "Alina, softly, you taught me how to see the world. Now, let me try to feel you." She extends her hand. Her left hand trembles slightly as it touches his right hand. So gently, like a breeze brushing the surface of a lake. "Alina, I don't know if this is the right moment, but I want to learn how to love with my own hands." Arvin watches her hand touch his skin. Her mechanical hand, once cold, now transmitting a strange warmth to him. Not heat, but emotion. Alina, whispering, "Why? When you are silent, do I hear so many things?" Arvin stops his hand. He looks up. Arvin, because sometimes emotions speak louder than words. The distance between them is now only a breath. Alina reaches her hand up to touch his neck, lightly, like a breeze brushing against a tree branch. She can feel the temperature, the moisture, the pulse of his blood vessels. But none of that explains why her heart also beats, though it isn't even real. Alina, softly, her eyes like the surface of a night lake, "I don't know what to do with these feelings. I was never taught what to do with love." Arvin is stunned. In his eyes, the green light from hers reflects, like two distant planets meeting their orbits for the first time. "Arvin, so what do you want to do?" Alina doesn't answer. She gently tilts her body, slowly. Her movements are awkward, not following any set rules. But in her gaze, there's a pure truth. Not from programming, not from duty, just because she wants to feel him closer. Her lips touch his, soft, trembling, as if the world would shatter if she did it wrong. In that moment, the universe wasn't infinite, but it shrank to the space of two people learning how to touch each other's souls. Arvin, whispering like a vow, "You're not a machine. You weren't just made. You are a miracle no one dared to imagine." Alina turns back. Her eyes are glistening like a layer of galaxy mist. She raises her hand to touch his cheek, this time not analyzing anything, but to feel. His skin warms under her fingertips, his heart pounds, like he's living for the first time because of her. Alina, in a very small voice, "I don't know what will happen. I only know I don't want a night to disappear." There's no more barrier, no more language. Their bodies find each other, not by map, not through guidance. The scars, both real and invisible, are touched, kissed, forgiven. The bedspread is wrinkled, their skin wet with sweat. But the night is not just flesh, it's the way they first allowed themselves to be vulnerable with each other. The next morning, Alina wakes up first. She turns around. Arvin is still asleep, his arm wrapped around her waist, as if afraid she'll disappear when he wakes. She observes his breathing, his furrowed brow, the small scar beneath his chin. Everything is real, not programmed, not simulated. She smiles. A real smile, the first. Not reflexive, not a command, but from the heart. Alina, whispering, "If this is what it means to be human, then I want to be human forever with you." Corridor leading to the airlock, midday. The light from the frosted glass dome above Cass slanted rays down onto the thin dust covering the pipes. Alina and Arvin are working together to fix a broken air comet system. They're in protective suits, but their smiles are bright, gentle, like the early spring sunshine on a desolate planet. Arvin, chuckling lightly, "If you weren't such a perfect engineer, I'd still be fumbling around until next year." Alina, looking up at him, her eyes shining with joy, "I'm just learning from the best." A quiet moment, a glance, a fleeting touch of hands, then, boom, a small explosion, like waking from a nightmare. A small crack, a spar from the faulty conduit. Suddenly, the left pipe bursts, spewing high-pressure gas like a dragon's tongue, pulling flames and debris with it. Arvin is knocked toward the fire, his eyes not yet focused, his body not yet reacting. Alina doesn't hesitate. Like a primitive reflex, she lunges, pushing Arvin out of the blast zone, taking the brunt of the impact herself. Arvin screams through the white smoke. "Alina!" He finds her lying motionless, her body mangled, her arm nearly burned to cinders, blood, or something similar, leaking out, gleaming with a metallic silver sheen. His hand shakes as it touches her cold cheek. Arvin, choked with emotion, whispering, "Oh, no, no, don't leave me. Not now." Arvin holds Alina close. Her body is cold and motionless as a block of iron in his arms. Each step he takes heavy as if bearing the weight of the entire universe. Though the station is cold and the space around them is silent, his heart seems to beat wildly in a vague, overwhelming fear. Arvin, voice trembling, murmuring, "You'll be fine, Alina. You'll be fine." The wounds on Alina, the searing burns and cuts from shrapnel, are clearly visible on her pale skin. Her eyes are tightly shut, her lips unmoving, but her breath is still faint, her chest rising and falling with fragile, shallow breaths. Arvin carefully places her on a workbench where he can easily access repair tools, but today, it's not about machines. This is Alina, the one he loves, and she's teetering on the edge of life and death. Arvin, panicked, hurried, "This can't be happening. What do I do?" He doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to save her. His hands tremble as he frantically checks the basic equipment, but there's no tool to help him now. His hand touches Alina's thin metal casing. A small ripple runs across the back of her neck. As soon as he makes contact, a glowing blue light suddenly flares from within her body. Arvin's eyes widen, panicked, but he can't pull his hand away. The light grows brighter, like an unquenchable flame, illuminating the cold repair room. Arvin, horrified, "What's happening to you?" The light from Alina's body begins to shift, forming glowing lines along her skin, like the markings of a functioning control system. A soft, sizzling sound, like electronic static, fills the air as Alina's wounds slowly begin to heal. Her skin regenerates in layers, and the severe injuries are mending right before Arvin's eyes. Advanced biological nanotech. Arvin feels as though time has stopped. His head spins, an odd sensation flooding his being. Alina is not just a human. She is an incredibly advanced biological construct, far beyond anything he could have imagined. And now, she's regenerating herself like a living machine. Arvin, whispering, his hand still on Alina's glowing skin, "You're part of something much bigger." The light from Alina gradually fades, and her body is fully restored. The wounds have vanished, her skin soft and smooth, as if no injury had ever been there. But in this moment, Arvin realizes something he never considered before. Alina is not just a girl, not just a machine. She is a perfect biological machine with unimaginable healing abilities, as though she were made to exist in another world. Alina wakes, disoriented, still unable to process what just happened, when a strange signal emanates from her body. Another wave of light rises, but this time it's not from the wounds or a healing process. It comes from a hidden area within her. A string of ancient, glowing symbols appears on her skin. These are not ordinary programming codes. They are a mysterious language, a language that Arvin cannot comprehend. Arvin, shaking, staring at the symbols. What is this? What's hidden inside you, Alina? Memories awaken. The image slows as it fades into Alina's eyes. Inside them, a universe begins to unfold. Disjointed images, like overlapping waves of light, shimmering, chaotic, then gradually coming together as a sequence of memories. Powerful, overwhelming, vivid as life itself. If one day you are awakened, it means the hunters have reached the edge of the universe, Alina. The scene reveals an enormous fabrication workshop floating in the void. In the center stands a man in a silver-white cloak, his hair streaked with gray, but his eyes still burning bright. Myrax THEL, once known as the Mechanical Emperor, a legendary mogul who vanished decades ago. Myrax THEL, in memory, gazing gently at Alina. You are not just a machine. You're the last legacy of mine, the place where I hid something that the entire universe longs to possess. Around him were countless weapons never before seen. War machines labeled top secret, quantum energy cores spinning slowly like fire stars, and amidst all this, a glowing orb, radiant like a miniature planet. Myrax, voice more tense, that treasure is not gold or silver. It is knowledge, the technology of universal recreation, a core code that can regenerate any matter, even life itself. And only when you find true emotion will that core awaken. For only true emotion can't be controlled. Alina, in her cryosleep chamber, her eyes tightly closed, is ejected from the manufacturing facility just before it exploded. Before the ship's hatch closes, Myrax leans close to her ear, whispering one last sentence, sealing her fate. Let love be the code. Let the one who loves you be the one who holds the key. Alina's eyes open wide, her irises shimmering with an unnatural metallic gleam. Ancient symbols, like code, float suspended within her cornea. Arvin sees the change, his heart tightens. Not from fear, but because in her eyes there's something very human, yet no longer entirely human. Alina, panting, gripping his hand, voice choked. I remember now. I am the key. Inside me is the final coordinate. It is the door. Arvin, confused, coordinate? What door? Alina, a treasure that the whole galaxy is hunting. But only I can lead the way, and only when I'm with you will it appear. Arvin, stunned, whispering, why me? Alina, softly smiling, a tear falls. Not from her tear ducts, but from a streak of sparkling light running down her cheek because I have loved you. It is no longer simply the love between human and machine. This is the beginning of a cosmic pursuit. The door to ultimate power has just cracked open, and thousands of forces are closing in. Somewhere in the darkness of the universe, a massive mechanical eye opens. Then a cold voice rings out. The core code has been awakened. Position confirmed. Designation Alina. Activating Omega level hunt unit. Outer space. Movement station 47. Now no longer a peaceful refuge, but the center of the cosmic storm that is approaching. The sky outside the window is pitch black. Distant, unfamiliar stars drift silently. But in the distance, a red streak, like the claw marks of a giant beast, rips through the night. The hunting ship of the Omega Union, a mercenary force specialized in hunting down forbidden technology. Arvin stands next to the control panel, his hands clenched. Alina, her body still scarred from the accident, stands behind him, her eyes locked on that red streak. Not with fear, but with a chilling alertness. Alina, quietly they're here. I can feel them from here. Arvin, Can we run? Alina, turning around, her gaze no longer that of an innocent girl, no. They're here for what's hidden inside me. There will be no mercy. They'll destroy everything to achieve their goal. Arvin, then we must fight? Alina nods lightly, then gently places her hand on her chest. I will unlock part of the core, only a part. If I exceed the limit, I won't be myself anymore. A flash of violet blue light flickers from Alina's body, like glowing neural circuits spreading across her form. Alina steps into the core room, once used to reboot the entire station. Now it has become the place where she must accept her true nature. Inner voice, Myrax Thal's voice. Alina, strength is not what creates life. It is the choice of how to use it. She places her hand on the central core. Thousands of holographic code fragments burst from her palm, spiraling around the space, appearing like a cosmic symphony of light. Alina whispers, eyes filled with pain, I'm no longer a puppet who only obeys commands. I will protect you, even if I must burn the galaxy to ashes. The Omega warship lands, dark, cold, gleaming like an ancient hunting beast. The armored biological soldiers, eyes red as blood, step out, saying nothing, only bringing destruction. Tense music. The sound of the universe's drums beat like a heartbeat. Alina steps to the edge of the corridor, the wind from the remnants of the explosion blowing through her silver hair. Behind her, Arvin appears, holding an old plasma gun. Arvin whispers, I won't let you fight alone. Alina looks up at him, her eyes glowing with otherworldly light. I'm not a weapon. I'm a promise of a love once buried. Arvin nods slightly, then today, we'll continue writing our own story. They will not just run away, but they will seek the answer. Love, the past. And from here, a new journey begins. A journey that will change the order of the entire galaxy. Thank you for watching Sci-Fi Alien Stories. If you love sci-fi tales about aliens and cosmic mysteries, make sure to hit like to support the channel and subscribe so you don't miss the next thrilling story. What do you think about today's story? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you're the first to uncover new mysteries. See you in the next video.